Our next panel of innovators has matched the art of delivery to the speed of need, literally, whether or not it's time-critical organ delivery, the build-out of strategic warehousing, or the transition to electric vehicles and its infrastructure. The science of getting packages from point A to point B is undergoing a fundamental transformation. So now, Dan Leder, president of Prologis, meets 3 game changers from the world of delivery.
The key thing, when really obvious, to consider what is a differentiator.
All right, I'm excited to be here with these 3 very interesting and very experienced guests. Over the next 30 minutes or so, we're going to explore innovation underway in delivery. The role of the supply chain is to deliver the right product to the right person at the right time. And we all see this, the world getting much more complex, increasing the pressure on delivery and the infrastructure around delivery. We all saw this through COVID. COVID showed the fragility of the supply chain and the impact it has on our everyday lives, whether it be very small issues or mission-critical impact. And when I think about mission-critical impact, I think of critical. I think of you, Alex. I think of real estate, logistics, real estate. We talk in square footages. We talk in NOI. Our energy business, we talk in megawatts, gigawatts. Airspace, you have some pretty interesting KPIs you use. You actually report the number of lives you save. So can you share that with us here?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of our KPIs. We are in the business of mission and time-critical shipping. So the most important, the most integral shipments that need to arrive on time and as exactly as prescribed. And so one of our core sectors is healthcare, and we're on pace to ship about 100,000 packages with life-saving materials, whether that's a treatment, a medical device, but also organs, tissues, blood. And those shipments obviously have to be there on time. They aren't just mission critical, they're life critical. Someone's life is dependent on us executing with precision and exactly as the customer needs. But that's not just healthcare. I mean, you see an increasing need for mission critical across the board, whether it's automotive, semiconductor, aerospace and defense, any of these high-tech, increasingly integrated manufacturers also have a big need for mission-critical shipments. It has to be there on time to prevent a line-down scenario. Has to be handled the right way, just like an organ or or blood would be. It has to be handled the right way to make sure it's not damaged en route. And that's the business we're in, these ultra-critical shipments. So life saves is definitely one of our KPIs, but there's a lot of them that focus on just precision, value, making sure it gets there exactly when it needs to be.
What is that number today?
Of total shipments or of?
No, saved.
It was 7,800 this month, so we're on pace for about 100,000 this year.
Wow, that's just amazing. So let me take that to our first topic I'd like to unpack with you guys a little bit here, and that's around the increasing customer demands in an increasingly complex world. And let me start with my own house. I think about, I have 3 young kids, and my 5-year-old, the dog ate her stuffed unicorn animal. And so we had to go replace that, of course, immediately, exactly the right one. So we order it, and then 20 minutes later, she pokes me on the back and says, "Hey, Daddy, can you open that app up so we can track that package?" So here this 5-year-old thinks she has this God-given right to have a package like in hours, I guess. So you think about the the customer demands that we all deal with. That's just a very small view, but this is really, I think, an analogy of what we see kind of everywhere throughout the supply chain. So there's certainly more pressure than ever on the supply chain. In a historically reactive industry, look at the issues going on, whether it be geopolitical, what we're seeing in the Middle East. Look what's happening on the East Coast of the United States right now. Battered by this hurricane over the last week, and then 2 days later, the port, the entire East Coast port complex goes on strike for the first time in nearly 80 years. Tens of thousands of workers not working, moving those shipments. 3 of the top 5 ports in the United States not operating. So think about those issues. What steps are you all taking to help meet your customers' expectations? Dr. Peters, let me start with you. We talked a lot before about how Renus is spending a lot of time and resources to really understand customer needs. So what learnings have you discovered and how's it impacting your business?
Yes, thanks for that one. So, I mean, a customer need is more than what you receive in a request for quotation, more than in a tender document. So it's really like what you were saying, is it really a need of your children, or is it the customer experience? And over the last probably decade, and COVID made it really transparent, the Suez Channel issues made it really transparent, that logistics and supply chain management is a differentiator. And it's system relevant. And that in these days is key of the topics with our customers to say, okay, what is actual situation, but what is also, how can we surprise? How can we come into customer experience for your customers? So we are enabler as logistics service providers. We are warehousing, we are transport. You feel that's an easy stuff. But if you put yourself in the shoes of the customer of your customers, and we talk more and more on C-level in these days, because the VUCA word is reality, and saying now, in the next step, hey, let us get in contact with your R&D department. Let us get in contact with your sales marketing department. And how can we differentiate via logistics, via supply chain management? And that's what we are for with our 40,000 employees. That's the difference.
Yeah, interesting. Alex, what do you have to add here?
No, I mean, you talked a little bit about the example with your daughter trying to get something quickly, and Amazon has done that across industries. There's an expectation of immediacy, an expectation of speed, but there's also an expectation of ease of use, to the point where your daughter can look at that app and understand at 6 years old, oh, it's going to arrive tomorrow, right? And so what we've seen, certainly, as I mentioned, there's a need for critical and speed in our shipping. There's also a need, just like Dr. Peters said, for the customer experience. And so what we've seen is a breadth of different customer needs. So handling an organ is very, very different than handling a semiconductor. So what we've invested in is horizontal technology. How do you build technology that's both easy to use, easy to understand, because there's this expectation from a UX perspective of a smooth, clean experience, but that's also malleable enough, flexible enough that when I input my needs as a semiconductor company, we can digest that and give you the solution you need, whether it's tomorrow or same day, in the same way that we can digest and consume a healthcare customer's needs and make sure we understand that. So for us, it's really investing in wide and broad, as opposed to kind of going deep on any one vertical.
Sure. Okay. Great. Patrick, any thoughts?
Well, I'm guessing that on top of all of that, the dog toy company then said to your daughter, this dog toy is also a green product. And so it's not only going to be there instantaneously at the touch of the button, but it's going to be there with 0 carbon. And that's going to be, therefore, the shippers putting pressure on the transporters to make that carbon neutral journey. And you think about then what has to happen to actually make that true. And in today's world, that either means it has to transit somehow in, a biofuel, or it has to be, there has to be some carbon offset, or it has to be at the bleeding edge of some electric truck or van in transport. And then you still have to carbon offset all of the other operations. And that's a big challenge. That's sort of at the bleeding edge of where we are today.
Yeah, sure. So let me actually use these last 2 answers here to move to our second topic, which is around data, analytics, and AI. Of course, you can't turn on a TV today, you can't pick up a newspaper without learning about some new AI innovation, and for good reason. This is great promise for us in really all aspects of our lives. And it's honestly exciting when you think about what AI and data analytics can do to improve or optimize the infrastructure that we do have around delivery. Can we squeeze more efficiency out of today's infrastructure to get that right product to that right person at the right time? So, Dr. Peters, you've been involved with the Open Logistics Foundation since its founding. Can you explain what that is and why it's important?
Yeah. It's a great opportunity to give that to you because we are still somehow in the startup phase, but delivered already. So it was founded 2021 together with Schenker, with Daxa, with the DuSport, with the BLG. And we were saying as a purpose, we want to, with the many people, deliver for the many people software for logistics in open source. And that means in today, we have in our applications probably already 30–40% open source software integrated in the TMS, in the WMS, in our technology applications, but not logistics relevant. And to take it as an example towards maybe sustainability, customer experience, so we put an algorithm towards a repository to collect data bins, which is blockchain-based contract, and to say, well, this bin, if it is, for example, 80% filled, we have a service level agreement to get it collected within 24 hours, 36 hours as agreed. And now we just took our own experiences and our own dispatching rules in. And while we put it open source, the many developers using it and even optimizing it and getting data in like what holiday days, what external events take place where, so where we get in traffic jams, maybe we put it a bit earlier. Also a very interesting one, some put in the maintenance topics of our truck fleet, and so we enlarge it. And this is, at the end, you could name it a differentiator, but the key topic is the non-differentiating things. So we delivered already in eCMR. The driver app is now the next one to make the things easy, to drive more customer experience or to get logistics more attractive for truck drivers. We all know about the shortage, or within the customer base, not everywhere, every logistics service provider is looking different and developing at its own. And last word towards that, the story, and it's founded in Dortmund, and probably you're not aware, in Dortmund is the largest logistics institute and campus with more than 1,000 people covering 100% of the logistics. And the local football club in Dortmund is same like Liverpool, never walk alone. And that's the key thing with the Open Logistics Foundation. Why walk alone? Why not share? Why not align with each other and get faster and more precise to the better results?
Yeah, you know, Alex, we had talked about something similar in the United States a few weeks back. What are your thoughts on this? Obviously, early days in the AI trajectory. What are your thoughts on this overall? And then are you seeing benefits from a competitive advantage already, or
Yeah,
any sort of
absolutely.
customer experience?
I mean, airspace is really founded on a basis of AI. So if you think about the decisions that we have to make, they are immediate. They are extremely complicated. You have to figure out how to get a package from A to B in the moment that order comes in, and B might be on the other side of the world. So for example, if I'm here in London and I've got to get this water bottle to, let's say, Frankfurt, which is a fairly simple and fairly straightforward delivery, do I go to Heathrow or do I go to Gatwick? Do I get the driver who's right here, or maybe who's an expert in this? Do I have the right handling instructions for this? Do I have the right partners on both ends of it? And you have to make those decisions instantly. So where we see AI being really effective, it's a mantra that our founder has, is that it's at its best when it lets people do what they're good at and lets computers do what they're good at. So a great example would be our humans. What we want them to do is serve, understand, partner with our customers. AI automates so many of the activities that we do, and it frees up time for them to do that and really deeply understand the customer. Meanwhile, our AI is able to use data for all those different points, the airline performance, airport performance, different cargo facilities, but also different drivers, and predict the optimal path between those 2 points instantly. What's the perfect price? What's the perfect route? Monitor that while it's en route. And so it makes us faster, makes our decisions more accurate. It makes us able to give customers more options that our humans were able to understand because they had time to speak with the customer. So if anything, we see AI as this huge tool to augment people, not necessarily to replace them, but to augment them and give them kind of this superhuman skill set that they can now bring to the customer. So it's a huge advantage to us, but it's predicated on data. The only way it works is if you have a stream of data constantly coming in from the world, making sure you understand exactly like Dr. Peters talked about, making sure that those partners are on a shared platform, that we can understand what's happening in real time. Is there weather in Frankfurt that I need to prepare for? Is there traffic on the way to Heathrow? All these things are things that we need to constantly be evaluating and adjusting for, and that's what AI is so great at.
That's great. Patrick, I'm sure McKinsey's very focused on helping deploy AI strategies. Any best practices you can share?
Well, I think so. Most of my work centers in automotive transport, both truck and passenger car. And I think what was exciting to me is when generative AI got really hyped up, is that board members basically put pressure on CEOs, and with ChatGPT and everything, it was sort of, what's your AI strategy? But what it also did is that the Gen AI question then opened the floodgates to more investment in traditional AI. And so in industrial companies, which is where I spend a lot of my time, in transport companies and logistics, that translates into more investment into what we used to call sort of machine learning and Industry 4.0 and more automation. And so what we're trying to do is actually either scale up proven use cases, which are really creating value, and trying to steer our clients to take things that are really proven but are in pilot scale today and say, take this in the corner of one plant where it's actually, reducing warranty or reducing scrap or taking inventory costs down, and take it to all your plants.
Right.
And so, or in your R&D use cases. So we have a truck maker that was able to reduce, their aerodynamics by 2%. And right now, aero is a game of inches. So 2% means a lot. And they took their tests down from 10,000 tests down to 100 tests.
Wow.
So that saved engineering hours by 50% and 2% improvement in aerodynamics. So those things are pretty meaningful today.
Yeah, that's really impressive.
And maybe I add
Yeah.
one thing, we are heavily concentrating in Renus and discovered that we have shortage in people in the Western world, but also in the emerging markets who do not want to do the normal work. So
Right.
these big data and get knowledge out of that one to read through long documents where AI is a co-worker. And it's like, beforehand we heard about robotics as a game changer, but this is for the physical handling of materials and goods. And we need AI for these decision-making or decision-supporting processes. So it's a real co-work with our people who we do not find and who are with a university degree. They don't want to go through big data. They want to, or we as an employer are attractive if we offer jobs where AI is really supporting you to do the fancy stuff yourself and get the normal, regular done.
Yeah, so you get your high caliber people doing the highest caliber work versus the mundane work. Yeah.
Maybe Dan, just at the risk of adding one more for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
I think because we're in England, the lithium-ion battery was invented by a British chemist. And I think if you're a believer that AI could potentially solve a lot of things in science, health, vaccines, et cetera, I think what's really exciting in the battery world and EVs and things like this is that around the world and potentially with government investment and support, that could dramatically accelerate the next breakthrough in battery chemistry as well. And it might be something that Prime Minister Tony Blair might speak to former Prime Minister a little bit later.
Yeah, great, very interesting. Let me hit this third topic with you three real quick. It's around sustainability. Patrick, you hit this a little bit already. Increased focus on sustainability these days. Now, it's not a new concept, obviously, but we continue to hear this. We spent some time with some government officials yesterday, talk a lot about sustainability here with the national government. Regulators are all over this. Customers, investors, employees are all over this as well. Our end users, many of them are retailers, and lion's share of their greenhouse gas emissions come through the supply chain, right? So here we are. Patrick, you're in the automotive sector here. What's the reality through all the noise when it comes to zero emission vehicles? Where are the opportunities and challenges?
Yeah, I think noisy is the right word for it. 2024, it's a difficult era for passenger cars. I think if you think sort of through the hype cycle, 2021 was peak hype, and 2024 is sort of the trough of disillusionment. We've had all kinds of bankruptcies. We've had U.S. dealers push back on selling EVs. We've had all kinds of challenges. And if you were at Hanover at IAA, on the other end, you saw sort of electric trucks everywhere and Chinese trucks everywhere. And so it's sort of all these confusing messages. At the same time, we actually haven't seen that many electric trucks and even fewer hydrogen trucks on the road. So in the true zero emission space, we have very few actual proven trucks on the road. We are seeing some biofuels on the road, so some level of deployment. And we really need a level of further reduction in batteries. But what we really need in the truck space is going to be a change in business model. So if we look 15 years ago to today, battery costs have come down 10x. If we could imagine just in the next 5 years the battery come down 2x, we can easily imagine a TCO curve that's amenable to zero emission trucks. So economics is not really the biggest issue. The bigger challenge is going to be infrastructure rollout, and I commend Prologis in what you're doing in Prologis Energy and Essentials, because greenfield deployment is a lot cheaper and capital light compared to brownfield. But permitting, grid connection challenges, these are going to be the bigger rollout issues that we're going to see. And it's going to be the business model of third-party logistics and deploying out to smaller fleets that aren't as capitalized versus large private fleets.
So when do you see these become more prolific? Specifically, a date.
Well, look, we're in pilot mode. I mean, take the U.S. All the big fleets are piloting a number of trucks from all the truck makers. So everyone has dipped their toes at the moment, and they're running a large amount of miles on the road. So that's the good news. As we see those miles and the reliability prove out, and as we see, I think by 2030, our projection is we're going to see trucks move from, at a cost base, say of 190,000 USD to say 120,000 USD. That's a cost base, so prices are higher. You know, you can imagine that becomes a much more economic proposition. And with Prologis rolling out charging infrastructure at a lot of depots, batteries, tech becomes a lot more amenable in long haul and point to point. So by 2030, I think you're going to see a lot of point to point transit. Long haul over the road, probably a little bit further out.
Great, thank you. Dr. Peters, I know Renus has focused on alternative fuel vehicles. What are your thoughts? What are your learnings? Is this something you're going to continue to expand upon, and any other sustainable practices you're focused on?
Yeah, so we go back in 2011. So there we had really one of the first 10 trucks of Mercedes-Benz Actros as a hybrid one. And we are not the one who developed technology. We can give the OEMs the opportunity to get it tested in the field. But since 2011, we have all type of trucks and cars, what we use for our delivery service and for running our network. And taking the example of the B2B2C, so because there is much more advanced. We are market leader in two-man handling, final mile to the private households in Europe. And there we run a network, and we're going and had an anchor customer, and they said, okay, we want to have this differentiator towards our customers. And so we run today 700 3.5-ton upwards trucks on EV base. So it was a clear decision for the network, 100% EV. And we will turn it into 2027, 100%. Now it's a third of the fleet. Is that the best solution at the moment of time? Yes. At that moment of time, it is. Is it more efficient than what we had? No. So we have to continue, and we have to meet the challenges, what Patrick was mentioning. So it's for sure the charging and its infrastructure, and we have to get better, and we have to get next technology steps. But we are always the ones who discover together with our customers how to contribute to the better tomorrow.
Great, thank you. Alex, you're going to finish us off here. Sure. Very difficult to implement sustainable practices in time-critical logistics, right? Absolutely. I find you have a very interesting take on this. I'd like to hear your take around transparency and the sustainability.
Absolutely. I mean, to me, efficiency or rather kind of a reduction in emissions come down to two questions, right? First is reduction in waste. We talked a little bit about kind of improved efficiency, getting better at avoiding whether it's unnecessary miles, unnecessary routes, and that is a very straightforward, natural progression of where we are today. We've got this weapon that's AI that lets us do that more effectively, but that just is a very logical next step. Let's avoid unnecessary miles where they don't need to happen. We find that customers who adopt some of our solutions see as much as a 20% reduction in the miles that they no longer need to drive. You can now optimize those routes. But there's a second piece to the equation, and that's choice. And
right.
You have to find customers who want to make the choice to optimize for that. And in years past, that wasn't really part of the equation, especially in logistics. It was, you have two levers, and you can only pull one at one time. It's speed and it's cost, right? And now, between pressure from shareholders and stakeholders, but also from regulation, a third lever has been introduced, and that's emissions. And it's a really important change that this industry has undergone, is that now we have to consider that. And it's great to see customers who take that calculus into, they have to think through all three pieces of that. And I think the only way you can have that choice to be more efficient is if you have an ecosystem where you have a comprehensive set of options that are powered by data. Each option is accurate, it's fueled by information that's real time, and that you can go execute on that option. So I want to choose a greener route. That's something that Airspace does. We offer customers an option to get there on time and at a cost that makes sense, but also at an emissions level that is lower than maybe other routes. But the only way you can do that is if you have constant view and a constant stream of information and data that's real time and that can be adapted based on whatever conditions the market is presenting you,
Yeah, it's very interesting, very impressive. Let me just thank the three of you, Alex, Dr. Peters, and Patrick, for being here and sharing your thoughts. We are going to move to a couple questions here. I'm going to call Tracy back up here to the stage.
So thanks, guys. Great conversation. Just maybe really briefly, where do you see the world of logistics needing to go in the next 10 years?
I'm happy to kick that off. I think I talked a lot about the need for data and the need for real-time information. And I think what you see today is we've taken baby steps. In the US, you have ELD mandate. Every truck has to have a device that says where it is, what's happened. But those really are just baby steps. You still have a huge portion of the world's assets, vehicles, trucks, planes that are just not connected to each other. They're not speaking to each other, not speaking to one single source of truth. Dr. Peter talks about kind of bringing those partners to the table, and that's a huge part of what needs to happen over the next 9 years, because if you want those choices, you want that optionality, but if you want to optimize your network, you need to understand your network. And first, you need to get that information from all of the disparate parties, and then you need a way to push that information back to them. So it has to become a two-way street. We're building the infrastructure on the first part. Let's get the data from every possible moving partner and party in the world that is a part of this network, and then let's figure out a way to more consistently and cohesively push that information back to them so they can action the decisions that we've made thanks to that data. So that's kind of a big part of what we see happening in the future.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you, Alex. And the interesting about that is, for example, in Europe, we have 220,000 companies providing road freight services. And the question will be, is that going to go to real market leaders with market shares like above the 20-30%? Or do we collaborate in a way, because we have systems in place, and that I'm convinced of, that enable real-time decisions and the optimizing towards the somehow called conflict of cost, efficiency, quality, sustainability, predictability, resilience. And there, logistics will reach again a tremendous next level of being of high importance as a differentiator.
I would just say the push and pull that I think we see the other way is cybersecurity is a big topic, and at the intersection of mixed fleet. So you asked about sort of pace of electrification. It's going to be a long time before we have a fully electric fleet, like 50 years, maybe longer, right? So we're going to have fleets that will have a mixed fleet for our lifetime, and managing that and the data between all of these different vehicles that operate very different ways is going to be pretty complicated.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Alex, Dr. Peters, Patrick, and Dan. It was for the insider's view into the next generation of delivery. We now have a much, much better appreciation for the extraordinary intelligence, strategy, and innovation enabling global fulfillment.